Stretch out. Take a deep breath. Feel the wind in your face. Move your wings out wide and feel the power in them. Stretch. Breathe. It's not time to leap yet. It's just simply a time to remember. Look up, see the sky, and know that's your destination. Flying is what you were born for, and that's where you're headed. Take it all in, even right now, as you breathe. Hi, my name's Steve Kidd. I am a third-generation minister, international best-selling author of 39 books and counting. I help folks write, publish, market their books to bestseller, and everything that goes beyond that. We've been a marketing company for nearly 40 years now. Anything you can imagine, anything you can name, we've definitely done in marketing space. But really, more than anything, what I'm here to do is to help you really know you, to be clear, so that you can use that powerful clarity that makes the difference in the world, to be the you that only you can be, and make the difference in people's lives that only you can make, to be strong, to be powerful, to be truly, vigorously alive and aloft on the passionate, powerful purpose that is yours, that will only come when you allow yourself to truly be clear. And I want to talk about today. We've been talking this week about the eagle's journey, and we talked about, how the baby eagle learns how to fly by falling and being convinced it's going to die. We've learned, and we talked yesterday about, the eagle stuck living with the chickens. And like that same eagle, you've been in that place too, haven't you? That place where you find yourself believing that pecking in the dirt, living on the ground, is your destiny. You feel like you're doing more than enough. You feel like you're living at your best because you're the best chicken in the coop. When in point of fact, you're not a chicken at all. You're an eagle. You're supposed to be soaring in the sky. Not that you're preying on the chickens. Not that you're looking down on the chickens, even though you're meant for much loftier heights. But just because and just simply from the fact that you are meant for more. You see, here's the truth. Some of us, we have gifts. I mean, all of us have gifts, but some of us, that's more so. There's that statement that his uncle makes to him just before he passes to Peter Parker in the Spider-Man series. With great power comes great responsibility. And there's many of you that have great power, great talent. You are amazing. But all too often we live like a chicken because we discover that our 10%, our 50%, our 80%, whatever, our anything less than 100% is more than, better than, and can do so much more than the average person's 100% can do. And instead of soaring above and leading the charge, being the leader that you were born and meant to be, instead of doing that, we end up finding ourselves living down in the chicken coop, settling for less. We're well fed. It's not that we're really meant to live on chicken feed, but it keeps our bellies full. It's not that we're meant financially to live in a place where we just get by. We're meant to be more than a conqueror, to be an overcomer, to do exceedingly abundantly above all that you can ask or even think. But instead, we find ourselves being grateful for the crumbs. And we've talked in times before about how crumbs to some people who have nothing is the feast they need. But if you're the king, you're the queen, you're the eagle, you're meant to soar, and you're living on crumbs, you're living on chicken feed, you're getting by, you're being grateful for enough, rather than living a life of expectancy of more than enough. You, like the eagle we've been talking about, afraid of falling like the baby eagle was, convinced by life to live as a chicken like the other eagle we talked about was. You don't stretch your wings. You don't feel your power. And even when the wind blows, you're not feeling that wind in your face. But we've been taking a journey this week. We talked about how unpowerful, and I don't know that that's really the word I'm looking for, but how uninspiring for sure that fear of falling is, and how much that is untrue. Because in our little baby eagle brains, we believe this time we're going to be dashed against the rocks, that we're going to fall and crash and dash and be less than and not make it through. Because we forget every single time that our mommy bird can fly faster than we can fall, that there is a purpose for us, and we've never even thought to spread our wings. Or maybe we've experienced those heights. Maybe, like the great eagle, we've soared high up in the sky. We've taken aloft. We've experienced that flight that few ever do. And then something happened. The wounds are real, okay? And I'm not dismissing or diminishing them at all. I've got them. I know you've got them too. They're very, very real. Very, very much things that you've had to live through. And they've left you wing broken, unable to fly, down on the ground. And you spent your time, like we talked about yesterday, living in the chicken coop. And living with the chickens was a good thing at that point because you were safe. You were able to heal. But even after you healed, you stayed with the chickens because you took on the persona even though you had flown high in the sky. You have convinced yourself that really all you ever were was a chicken. One of the greatest lines in all of literary history that I've ever read is in the book by C.S. Lewis, The Silver Chair. There's a character in The Silver Chair. And if you've never read, and many people haven't, because for the most part, they've only ever made, Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, Prince Caspian, and Voyage of the Dawn Treader. That's the first 3 books in the Chronicles of Narnia series. And they really have never made, there is one BBC version of The Silver Chair. And it does, on the one hand, it does an amazing job of following directly with the book. On the other hand, it almost goes almost word for word with the book. So, and it's kind of Britishy. So, it's a little dry. But for the most part, that book hasn't really been made into a major motion picture. And I'm sorry, because that means you've missed out on Pogrom. One of the least likely, and for sure, probably the most negative. I mean, he would give Grumpy Smurf, Grouchy Dwarf from the Seven Dwarfs, he would give them a run for their money because he's not a grump. He's actually a very positive person who also believes that everything always breaks down and nothing ever works out. And that's the culture that he was raised in. He was raised as a marshwiggle to always see the worst possibilities, to look at everything that could go wrong and be mindful of that. Sounds like there's a hunting chicken in the room with me. Yes, I know. And so Puddleglum comes into the story with our two main characters. Um, and he goes on this amazing adventurous journey with them to find actually what ends up being, we find out, is Prince Caspian's son. And I'm not going to tell you the whole Chronicles of Narnia, even though I can tell you every nuance of it. I've read them zillions of times. And the whole way, all along, he is absolutely convinced that everything's going to go wrong and is pointing out all of the ways that things are going to go wrong for our two heroes the whole time. But then they end up in a situation where they're underground. And the witch, who is the evil, the nemesis in the story, has convinced all of them that Narnia isn't real, that there is no such thing as the sky. She's telling them in graphic detail that stars are something that they created from the twinkle of the firelight on the gems in the ceiling. And that the sun is only just their thoughts of the fire that blazes in the middle of the room. And that Aslan is truly a myth that never existed. And Puddleglum, our grumpy, unimaginative, sees the worst in everything. This little marshwiggle, he stands up and he says, if all this darkness is all that you have, if there is no sky, if there are no stars, and if there is no Aslan at all, and if Narnia is only something I've dreamt up, then I will spend the rest of my life searching through these caves for a way to find my way to a surface I will always believe in. Because even if it's a fairy tale, that fairy tale is better than any of this reality that you've convinced us is all that there is. Now that's a little bit not a direct quote. And if I had thought about it, I could have brought it up and read it to you specifically, but that's very, very close to exactly how he says it. And I encourage you that today, because today what I want you to do, yesterday we looked at the line and we looked over the line, over the edge of the cliff. We just wanted you to look up and see that there's a sky up there over the cliff, not the rocks down on the ground, but the sky up in the air. We wanted you to look over on the other side of that line that you won't cross, because that thing that you know if you say it, it will ruin everything and destroy any possibilities for success for you. We wanted you to just look over that line and look at, well, what would life look like if I was on the other side of that line? What's the worst that can happen? And how real is it really that that's going to happen? Again, to just look up and envision what would it feel like if you were to soar in the sky. And I'm inviting you to take just one more step forward today. No, not off the cliff. No, not even over the line yet. All I want you to do today is breathe. Open your lungs. Let that fresh, salt sea air fill your lungs. Let the inspiration that comes from that breeze in your face, ruffling your feathers, that tingle that you feel, that deep down inside of you, knowing that it like the, and I don't even want to call it an ember. It's more like what would be less than a spark or an ember, It's like a piece of ash that contains still within it, because it's still hot. Any of you that have ever seen, the fires, like unfortunately the fire that we had back in Cali, here this last spring, or any other fires like that, what you know is that floating through the air is the ash, and it lands. And because most of California is a desert type of climate, when it lands on something, even though it was only ash, contained within it is the ability for it to smolder and burn and catch fire on things that are highly combustible. And though it felt like ash for you, contained within it is that ability for the inferno once again. And as you breathe, I want you to just breathe life into that ash. I want you to stretch your arms out and just imagine what flying, what soaring, what gliding up in the heavens would feel like again. We're not jumping yet. We're just breathing. Just want to feel the wind in your face. I want you to move. Move your shoulders, move your arms, move your mouth. That's right. Speak out today. Feel the strength and the power of it. Again, I'm not asking you to leap. That likely means that you probably won't go live, although I'd still love to encourage you. Remember, we did this one yesterday where we picked up our phone and we just simply said, I'm scared. That's all we said. Today, I invite you to pick up your phone and just simply invite everybody that's a follower of yours, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, wherever, just simply to invite them to just breathe. No action to take today, folks. Today, I just invite you to breathe with me and to imagine that maybe possibility is possible. You can even use that specifically. I invite you to breathe with me today and imagine that maybe possibility is possible. I want you to envision that too. And I want you to breathe. Feel the wind in your face. Let it stir up in you. What was the greatest moment in your life? The stage you were on, the book you wrote, the words you said, the person you inspired, the time when you said something and somebody came back to you and said, "Oh my gosh, that was incredible." I remember, this is a lot of years. This was the summer of 1985. I was standing on a stage in Ramstein. Yes, in Ramstein, Netherlands. No, Ramstein's in Germany. In Rotterdam, Holland. Okay. And there was a huge group of us. There was like 3 or 5 groups that had been touring Europe for the whole last month that all came together for what was called the Rotterdam finale. There were, that particular year in Continentals, there were about 25 singing groups, and each one of us had about 35 to 45, so about 40 kids each in the group, between the singers and, and the live band that we had with us. And then there was one group, it wasn't in Europe. There's one group that was a full orchestra, actually. And I remember standing on that stage. It's one thing when you come running down. We always did our intro. We ran down from the back or from the sides, and sang to the audience in the middle of the first song and then ran up onto the risers. And there's one thing when you do that, because, everybody else is with you. And, there's just, you can kind of zone out and just focus on when you do turn to sing to the audience, that one person in front of you. And if I remember the Rotterdam finale specifically, I don't know that I mean, because it was stairs, and I believe we actually just ran in from the sides and stood and sang forward to them more choral fashion, and then turned around and ran up on the risers. A lot of years ago. This is, we're talking 1985, so that's 40 years ago, literally. Um, but I'll never forget that feeling, because when the time came for testimonies, they took one person out of each one of the groups. And the our director had told me that he wanted me to be the one to speak. I had spoken a couple of times, and all we did was just give personal testimonies of our life. I was 18-year-old. Okay, I was a pretty cool 18-year-old kid. I often have said, that I really owe that 18-year-old of me a big apology, because absolutely, he was probably in some ways more ready for the world. And that may be you too. You may owe that young, strong eagle that you were, you may owe them an apology, because they soared in the heavens and they knew how strong they were. And life came and you broke your wing, or maybe both of them. And you convinced yourself you were a chicken. But even as I'm recounting what it felt like, there was about 10,000 people in that audience. It might have been more than that, but there was at least 10,000 in that audience. And I remember what it was like to walk down from the risers and to walk up and take the mic and look out across all this sea of mostly teenagers. That's something that'll make an impact in all of your life. And it doesn't have to be that big, because I can also remember, many, many times when I've met with somebody, whether it's on Zoom or in person. I remember one time when I was working at the Kirby office in Mount Vernon, Washington, Granite Distributing. I worked as a consultant for a lady then her name was Lily Anderson. She married Mickey Brown, and then her name became Lily Brown. But this was before she was married. And I remember sitting across, I was actually using her desk because somebody needed help. And Lily was actually on vacation that particular day. And I remember sitting in her chair at her desk across the table. And this guy was really hurting. And we talked. And we talked longer than most of those talks and that particular position went. We probably talked for about 30 minutes. Usually they were about 2, 3, 4 minutes. And the person would tell me what they were dealing with, and we'd, kind of give them a quick up level, a quick mini therapy session, if you will. But this one, we went deep. And, and I'm not going to reveal any of his private stuff, but he was going through some really awful things. And at the end of that, I'll never forget him looking at me and saying, "Thank you so much," because I wasn't really even sure how I was going to live literally through another day. And I was on the way driving into work this morning, wishing that somebody would crash into me and I would just die. But now I remember and I can feel like I can breathe again. And you have things like that in your own life. Maybe the person paid you, maybe they didn't. The monetary end of it isn't what it's about. It's the impact. And I encourage you, I invite you today to remember that moment, to breathe it in. That's the wind in your face. That's the soaring. Whether it was one person or 1 million people that you were sharing it with, whether you did a post and it went viral all around the world, or you met one-on-one with somebody. Yeah, that kind of moment. And it makes the difference, because it changes the trajectory, couldn't say that word, of that person. And you got to have that miracle magic moment to be part of that. Yes, there are things you're going to make money doing. And yes, there are going to be things. And yes, you are more powerful than you can imagine. And yes, you're going to be jumping off the cliff and soaring. There's no thought in my mind that you're going to crash to the ground. But we're not there yet. Today, I'm just asking you to breathe. Breathe in the air. Feel the wind in your face. Stretch your wings and just let it fly. I even put a post. You can go down if you're on Facebook, or you can look at it on Instagram. And I put it out there on purpose. That is just simply that eagle standing on the edge, feeling the wind in his face. The one I did yesterday was more, poised and ready to jump, whereas today it's just more standing there. I want you to find that power. It's in you. It's there. That moment has happened. Maybe you didn't capture it. I mean, you may be like me, where you've had people, even to the point of writing them, that have said amazing things about you and you didn't capture them. You don't have like this really cool testimonial page. I have a couple of them, but I don't have most of them. And there have been times when I've been consulting with companies and I've taken the most difficult, those clients that are the ones when nobody else in tech support can handle with them. It's like, let's give it to Steve. Give it to Steve. It's like Mikey, let Mikey eat it, And I've worked with that person and had them literally write and send in cards and say, I just really wanted to say thank you. I was so angry. And you gave me space for what I was feeling. And I'll even teach you a secret. The secret to dealing with somebody when they're really upset like that is, first of all, hear and to listen and to not interrupt them, which is really hard to do. But the second piece of that is to understand not everybody wants a solution. Some people just want to be heard. And sometimes you need to just stop and ask them, did you want to try to find a solution for this? Or did you just need to make sure that you knew that you were being heard? That can make all the difference for somebody. They're like, you mean you really actually want to hear me? I want you to know I hear you. I see you. I know the terror and the fear. But I also know how powerful those wings are. And I know how inspired that breeze in your face makes you feel. And I know you're scared. And I know you don't want to jump today, and you don't have to. I'm just asking you to breathe. Feel that breeze. And allow yourself, just in this moment, to close your eyes. And imagine, what if I was riding that wind? I don't know what your goals are. Maybe you want to be, in front of a studio audience of a small group of people and reaching out to millions on television. Maybe you want to be live in front of a crowd of people. Maybe you want to fill out stadiums. Whatever it is for you, I want you to envision it. What if it was real? What if it was true? Not what if you fail, but what if you succeed? And that's part of what we're going to talk about tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to touch on that fear of success. Fear of failure is very real, absolutely it is. But tomorrow we also want to talk about that fear of success. Today, though, I want you to just drop the word clarity, so that we can help you find that reality for you. Drop the word clarity in the comments. Send me a DM if you're still too afraid to do it out loud. DM me the word clarity. Let's get you clear on what that breeze is in your life, what that vision that you dared not even dream anymore. It's in there. Maybe you were 5 years old last time you thought it, but it's still real. All tears and gratitude. I absolutely love that. And I want you to envision that person in all tears and gratitude from what you do for them. I'm here for you. I believe in you. I want you to spend all day today feeling the wind in your face and moving and knowing just how strong and powerful you are. It's not time to jump yet, but we're getting there. And it's going to be good. It's going to be more than you could ever imagine. And I'm proud of you for taking this step. Take this feeling into your writing, into everything you do today. Be clear, be concise, be powerful, be consistent, and use that heart connection to make the difference today that only you can make. And thanks for doing it. Till we're together again next time, I hope you have a great week.